What does it feel like to be the victim of anti-Maori racism, casual racism, explicit racism, even racist abuse every day? Andrew Judd, a Pākehā, thinks he's beginning to have some idea. The Mayor of the New Plymouth District Council has announced he won't seek re-election. The reason, in short, it's the abuse he's received since he began campaigning for greater Māori representation in Taranaki. This was a controversial issue locally, and when the District Council voted to establish a Māori ward, a citizens-initiated referendum saw 83% of the 25,000 votes cast being against the proposal. Things got pointed and personal, and Andrew Judd decided he'd move on. At this stage, TVNZ's 7 Sharp picked up the story, but it was after the story ran that things got hotter still. 7 Sharp host Mike Hosking declared Mayor Judd was, and I quote, completely out of touch with Middle New Zealand. And then the debate went national. But Andrew Judd says the kind of things that were being said about him were very familiar indeed.
Things like, if I'd known you stood for this Maori stuff, I would never have supported or voted for you. You're done, mate. Maori don't need special treatment. They just need to be more like us. You're so misguided, Andrew. You're a one-term fella. You're not a politician. You're an idiot. You're a bigot. You're a separatist. You're supporting apartheid. You've got to drop all this Maori stuff.
Andrew, you sound to me like you're reading this list out. Are you taking notes?
I am reading my book.
Yeah, so you are keeping notes of what people are saying to you. And who are they? So if we look back on those comments that you've just read out to us, what sort of person is saying that sort of thing to you?
I've had comments like that from people that have just stunned me, which is why I've written it. And I don't want to, obviously I wouldn't say names, but people who are elected, and here's a classic of somebody who's elected. The loser must follow the laws of the victor, Andrew.
So when you say elected, are you talking a fellow councillor there?
No, a politician.
Okay, a central government or a local government politician?
Central government.
And what did he or she say?
The loser must follow the laws of the victor.
Okay, of course there was a treaty, wasn't there? So, in fact, actually, that doesn't really acknowledge that at all, the loser-victor kind of attitude, does it?
John, what it's reflecting is actually the question that I'm posing back to New Zealand, and that is, my gosh, have we moved anywhere? Have we? Then of course, I'm thinking or saying, actually, and from my own experience, we've never had a proper conversation with each other in terms of Pākehā to Pākehā. It's like we've got this mental wall, and I say that from my own life's experience. I had no idea of any of this because I've never, ever had to walk in a Māori world. I mean, what was I, 50 when I was elected, and I'd never been on a marae. Yet here I am, the mayor of a province, so rich in Māori culture.
Rich, yeah. I mean, Parihaka is not terribly far away from you. What, 40 minutes drive down the road?
That's right. So I had no idea. I mean, I knew of it as a settlement, but nothing to do with what actually happened, and more importantly, how it all happened. For me, though, that journey, because you probably hear, why didn't you campaign on that sort of this thing? Well, I didn't actually have any idea until because we're going through the process of settlement with Te Atiawa. And that's what started my journey, because I was given some reading information.
Okay, so you started this journey, and since embarking on this journey and going public with your response to the journey, in an odd kind of way, even though you are Pākehā, have you been the victim of anti-Maori racism? Is that effectively what you're saying?
Yes, it's exactly what I'm saying. So I'm not Maori at all, and I've not only come to realise this racism, I've felt it. And I mean, how lucky am I in the sense I can walk away from this job? I don't have to wake up tomorrow as Māori.
People say what? What is the most common argument advanced against what you are saying now?
They need to get off their backsides to stop holding their hands out for special privilege.
And what's your response to that?
Well, some people, it's just so hard to unpack because some have such anger in their voice, and some you can have start a discussion where there's a bit of sympathy, but it eventually comes to the surface.
Well, people get angry with you.
Oh gosh, absolutely.
And you've been spat at? It's been reported that you were spat at?
Was.
Did that happen?
It did, yeah, early on, and some swearing and stuff. So, and I try not to focus on that actually because, and in part that comes with the job. But behind that, I couldn't judge that person truly because I had to say, well, what motivated that? And I understood what motivated that because that's what I used to say and think. Surely you don't. No one should spit, of course, or swear. But the motivation of that anger is where I've come from all my life. All those cliche, ignorant statements I used to have and feel. And I've had to challenge that in myself So I'm reflecting to people, look, I'm saying I'm a recovering racist because it was purely based on ignorance and arrogance and privilege, actually, because I didn't have to walk in a Maori world. Becoming the mayor, I had to walk in the Maori world because of, obviously, you're engaging in a wider sense, like first time honour marae. Then I looked into the eyes of real people that these things have real consequences to, who are still in pain from this. And I think here it's been thrown at me in a public forum, how must Māori feel having to watch all this? How would you feel as a person in your own country? And we wonder why we have such challenges. I've come to say, look, you can throw all the money you like at the challenges around settlement. If we haven't actually had an honest conversation with ourselves about the past happenings and our attitude from it, we'll never truly fix it. And it's not to name, shame or blame. It's to actually understand, to have empathy, to have tolerance, to realise that there are two worlds, actually. Māori have to walk in the Pākehā world, but there's no requirement on mainstream New Zealand to do anything Māori, except have this high almighty attitude.
So the people who listen to you say that and say, I'm sick of hearing about bloody Maori, they want special treatment, we're all one people, we're all in this together, it's New Zealand.
That's right.
And do you hear that?
All the time.
All the time. How many times have you heard this? Just ad infinitum.
Every day.
Okay, so what do you say back to them?
So I've got the answers to just pretty much everything thrown at me now. So the classic one is, we're all one now, Judd, get over it. And I say, well, if we're all one, let's all be Māori. Because what you're saying is, what? Whose version of one are you implying we should all be? Because the reality to that is, we have cultural differences. Yes, we're one country, one passport, one rule, one law, but there are differences. To say we're all one is to disregard the minority of the tangata whenua by implying they should be what? As someone said to me, they just got to be more like us. That's the first one that they're throwing at me. The other one, lady comes up in the street and says, you do realise when Māori get settlement, the first thing they do is go down to Michael Hill and buy gold watches. I said, really? Of course they do. And I said, who? So I said, well, who? Well, they all do it. No, local iwi here. Come on, Andrew, don't be silly. They all do that. I said, I've never heard of that. Do you really know that to be factual? Well, where did that come from? Because I think that's come from someone who's planted that thought in you. Because those thoughts were planted in me all of my life based on no actual knowledge.
Okay, Andrew, I want to come in here because we've got a finite amount of time.
Sorry, yes. And I get emotional.
well, it's nice that you give a damn.
I get passionate.
Okay, yeah, that's clearly on the record. But there's going to be dual responses to what you're saying. I can imagine that some people who are listening will be just clapping and saying, "What a wonderful man," and other people who are listening will be saying, "What a PC lunatic."
I get all of that.
Yeah. So how do we reconcile those two strands?
So what I've thought, all I can do as one individual is say this. I'm a European Pākehā New Zealand. I love my country. I was elected to a mayor of a district. I've come to realise what I didn't know. I'm standing up to say from that lack of knowledge, that held an attitude, I am a recovering racist. It doesn't matter what you think of me, and I no longer ask for your vote. I simply say, look into your heart and ask the questions I asked of myself, because only you can answer that honestly to yourself.